After 11 years, I've decided that this will be my final year doing the Kingston Frontenac broadcasts on TVCOGECO. So for me, a big step. I think my wife is more upset about me not doing hockey than I am, because she loves her Friday nights. You know, she flicks them between her favorite show, and when it's in commercials, flicks over to the games to watch hubby on TV.
Emerton, shot, scores! One-on-one, watch him here, he cuts across, change the direction. As soon as he gets that opening between the defenseman's legs, just a little snapshot.
Yeah, I've got Jeff Stillwell to blame for getting me into this. So we were actually just having lunch together, and it was towards the end of the first season that COGECO was doing the broadcasts, and he brought up the fact that they were looking for a new person to do color commentary. He knew I knew hockey because that's all we talked about when we were having lunch, and he knew I had a broadcast background, having graduated from Algonquin Broadcasting. So he said, "Come on, you can do this." And I was nervous. I was completely nervous to say yes, but I thought, hey, it's an experience. Even if I get to do one game, you know, I can tell my friends and it'll be fun.
Being a color man and being a good one, not only do you have to have the stats and the background on the different players who are on the ice, but you have to be able to see the game. And Jon knows hockey. Jon had a very good way of seeing the entire ice and picking out the small little points that can sometimes make a difference between a goal being scored or not being scored.
I've never met anyone more meticulous at ensuring that the viewer comes first and the knowledge they need to understand what's going on in the game. Nobody does that better than Jon.
I always thought it really important to be prepared, to have enough background on the players and the teams that were coming into town that I could pass that along to the people who were taking the time to watch the games. I would typically do a lot of background information, a lot of research, and I wanted to make sure I was prepared. And really there was no philosophy other than trying to be fairly balanced. I knew if you look online, sometimes we were called homers, and sometimes we were complained about because we were too hard on the team. So if you've got both sides complaining, I think you've done your job.
Do the homework before and you're ready for anything to come about and ready for any situation, and that's real important on air, because the listener or the viewer can really pick that out when, hey, this guy doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. But certainly not in the case of Jon. He did his homework well ahead of time.
Well, I got to say that Mark Potter was probably one of the most professional. What's that? Oh, Begg. Yeah, Jon, yeah, he's pretty good too. One thing that I will always remember about Jon is that he has a yellow highlighter, he has a blue highlighter, and he has a big roll of Scotch tape. Because if our viewers could ever go up into the little broadcast area we have here at the K-Rock Center, it would be Easter, because it's a sea of blue and yellow, and there's papers everywhere taped up.
I've always been teased. They say Jon's upstairs wallpapering the booth, because I would have, you know, I would have stats here, stories here, different information about the teams in front of me, the lineups here, so I'd be surrounded by paper.
We often hear from people in the rink that they like the Kingston broadcast the best, and I think Jon is a major reason for that, because the one thing about Jon is how prepared he is every game.
So many broadcasters have a big ego, and Jon doesn't have the ego, and if he did, he checked it at the door, that's for sure. So easy to work with, and very unassuming guy, and always just went with the flow. Never got too excited about things that happened, whether they were for the good or for the bad. And certainly I know I put him in some difficult spots on many nights when we do the pregame show or the postgame show, and I'd bring up issues, and you know, at times maybe he wasn't totally comfortable about talking about them, but he always found a way to, you know, to make his point of view known, and without, you know, directing too much criticism at any individual player or the organization itself.
I've worked with a lot of different analysts and color commentators, and all have been exceptional, but Jon was the best at getting into the flow, reading the play-by-play guy, which you don't often see with an analyst, and then we just fed off each other. And the way he improved with each game, I mean, the stats, he was so prepared when he came to a broadcast, and so I was prepared as well, and so nothing was going to get by us.
Bill was interesting to work with. He was a fairly quiet individual, but he was incredibly supportive. He knew I was a nervous wreck my first game, and I just felt at ease for the rest of that game. When I was invited back for the next year, Bill and I worked really well together. He has this very dry sense of humor, which is right up my alley, and so we connected quite well.
There was an instant connection, an instant sort of click between us, and it just worked really well, and it was very easy and fun and natural, and I think that is a credit to the type of man that Jon Begg is, as well as the type of broadcaster that he is, because he's very professional, and he just cares the most about making the broadcast be great, and I think that's what I'll remember the most about him.
Dan brought a whole new perspective to the game. He was a guy who wanted to be into sports broadcasting. He was young, he was enthusiastic, and that was contagious. I remember laughing more that year on air than probably any other year.
I was very nervous calling my first OHL game 7 years ago, coming up from the CJHL, and it was a little tense for me, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do, but from that first game, Jon put me at ease right away. We chatted before the game for a couple of hours and went over who's doing what and what our particular roles are, and it was basically an extension of us, and let's entertain the audience.
David was, I mean, he's been the best, without question. He and I have developed a friendship, go down to Cornwall, get involved in his Team Cornwall tournaments. He's been wonderful to work with, he really has.
He has taught me how to relax. I remember when I first started doing this, you know, that red light would go on, and I would try to get 1,000 things out at once, and I just sort of try to vomit information. And Jon taught me through talking to me and just by watching him that, you know, just slow down, take your time, and eventually you'll get it all out, and it's not a race.
For a guy that maybe didn't grow up in the game of hockey, I think over the years, if anybody who's watched these games has probably seen Jon grow as a broadcaster. There's no doubt about that. His knowledge of the game has gotten stronger and stronger every year, and now he is, you know, you could probably call him an authority on the OHL and the Kingston Frontenacs, and I think that's what he brings to the game.
Jon has been a key part of my life in the OHL for the past 7 years, and he definitely will be missed.
It was something I enjoyed thoroughly. If I had to do it all over again, I would, and it's been a good run.